Due to Hitler's conquest for Lebensraum for the Aryan race, in May of 1940, the Nazis invaded France. Thanks to the triumphant German Blitzkrieg tactic, a war expected to last 3 years ended in 6 weeks, with a tragic unexpected defeat for the superior French army. At the end of World War I, France had the largest standing army in Europe. However, the superiority of their army began to fall as the years went on due to tragic military spending cuts. After 18 years of disarmament, the French finally began to prioritize rearmament in March of 1936 as a result of the German army moving back into the Rhineland. However, this had a very poor start due to large labor strikes taking place from 1936 to 1937. The rearmament finally began to triumph in 1939. The French were able to produce about 2,900 modernized tanks mobilized for war in 1940. These tanks were more numerous and overall of higher quality than the German tanks. Hitler did not want to open another two-front war like his forefathers did in the Great War, so he knew he would have to defeat France quickly so he could destroy his true enemy, the Soviet Union. To win, Hitler needed to crush the Allies swiftly through Blitzkrieg, or lightning war. Blitzkrieg is a method of warfare where the attacking force is spearheaded with armored and motorized divisions that have strong air support. This warfare is fast and is meant to keep the enemy disorientated until their submission. Commander Erich von Manstein proposed a blitzkrieg through the heavily wooded Ardennes region, which was considered impossible by tanks by the Allies. The idea slowly gained traction in the German High Command and was green-lighted for the Battle of France. This operation will be known as Case Yellow. France had maintained a military alliance with Belgium ever since the end of World War I, but this changed when the Belgians declared neutrality in 1936. This was tragic for France. The French plan for war centered around a series of strong fortifications on their side of the Franco-German border called the Maginot Line. The line took from 1929 to 1938 to be built and was labeled impregnable. The line would be extended into Belgium weeks before a Nazi invasion. But with Belgium neutral, France could not set up forward defenses in the country until an invasion had already begun. As a result, Plan D, or the Dial Plan, was adopted. It had the best Allied forces run into Belgium once the Nazis invaded and set a defensive line on the Dial and Meuse River. The 40-kilometer gap between these rivers, known as the Gembloux Gap, would be heavily fortified, while the Belgians would hopefully delay the Germans for at least 5 days further east. The Allied armies of France, Britain, Belgium, and Holland had about 3,300,000 troops at their disposal for the Battle of France. These forces were compiled into some 151 divisions. The Allies also had 4,204 tanks, 14,000 pieces of artillery, and 1,453 planes. The French army, under the command of Maurice Gamelin, contributed 103 divisions. Britain sent 10 divisions named the British Expeditionary Force, or BEF, under Lord Gort. Belgium was able to muster 26 infantry divisions under King Leopold III, and the Netherlands sent forth 10 divisions led by General Henry Winkelmann. Nazi Germany had about 2,500,000 soldiers in place for the Battle of France. These were distributed into some 135 divisions. The Germans carried 7,300 artillery guns, had 3,530 aircraft, and had 2,419 tanks. The Germans put their tanks into 10 separate divisions. Army Group A, the strongest of the German army groups, acquired 7 tank divisions, also known as Panzer Divisions. 5 of these Panzer Divisions, as well as 3 motorized divisions, were formed into an independent armored group known as the Kleist Group, under the command of Ivan von Kleist. This group, alongside heavy air support from the Luftwaffe, was planned to blitzkrieg through northern France and encircle the bulk of the Allied armies, cutting them off from communication and supply lines. On May 10, 1940, at 4:35 a.m., the long-awaited Nazi invasion of France, Belgium, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands began, with large numbers of Nazi parachute forces attacking key positions. The highly motorized French 7th Army rushed north to the Dutch city of Breda to keep the Dutch from surrendering. However, in a triumphant use of Blitzkrieg, German airborne units in conjunction with the 9th Panzer Division cut Holland in two. This pressured the forces at Breda to tragically retreat north to Amsterdam, not knowing about the French relief force coming. However, the best Allied units still enacted on the deal plan. The fastest Allied forces made to the Gemblox Gap late on the 10th of May. Two of France's light mechanized divisions were sent forward to meet the Germans head-on to give time for the First Army to entrench themselves in the Gemblox. Because of the speed and veracity of the Blitzkrieg in Belgium, German divisions were able to push the Belgians back 4 days earlier than expected. The resulting battle saw two light mechanized divisions facing off against two panzer divisions. The French tanks were able to triumphantly hold off the Germans from the 12th of May to the 14th, which gave vital time for the rest of the First Army to make it to the Gemblox and begin entrenching. In the end, 165 German tanks were destroyed to the French 105. With the Allies taking the baits in the north, Army Group A appeared in force out of the Ardennes on May 13th. French forces at the Ardennes were tragically undertrained and underarmed. These forces would meet the brunt of the triumphant Blitzkrieg assault. The Kleist Group compiled 1,000 planes in the vicinity of the city Sedan. These planes would lead out a terrifying 8-hour bombardment of the city and surrounding areas. The triumphant bombings devastated the morale of the French 55th B-list Infantry Division defending the city. At 3 p.m. the bombardment stopped and German forces began attempting to cross the Meuse at Sedan. The crossing required the ingenuity of Sergeant Rubarth and his company of assault engineers. He writes the following about his experience. I land with my rubber boat near a strong, small bunker, and together with Lance Corporal Pustis put out of action. We seize the next bunker from the rear. After a short fight, a white flag appears. Soon after this triumphant act of bravery, the French 55th Infantry Division dispersed, allowing the Germans to gain a 5-kilometer deep bridgehead at Sedan, another stunning display of the effectiveness of Blitzkrieg in this war. The Germans also achieved 2 other bridgeheads by night on the 13th, one 3 kilometers deep at Hox, and a contested one 1.5 kilometers deep at Montfermeil. The bridgeheads were not yet deadly, but the French High Command saw this as a tragedy. General Alphonse Joseph Dodges, the second in command under Maurice Gamelin, was reported as saying, "Our front has broken at Sedan. There has been a collapse." French tank divisions were quickly assembled to stop the German bridgeheads, yet these proved ineffective as Heinz Guderian, commander of 3 panzer divisions, pushed west, evading the dispositioned French tanks that were heading east. Erwin Rommel, commander of the 7th Panzer Division, was able to reach the city of Civry on May the 15th, and George Hans Reinhardt, commander of 2 Panzer Divisions, dashed 60 kilometers and made it to the city of Montconnet by 4 p.m. that same day, meeting little French resistance on the way. The chance for a total collapse of the French northern divisions due to the Kleist troops' Blitzkrieg was ominous. The French High Command, noticing the dire situation, pulled the forces in Belgium southwest off their deal defenses. With no troops between the Kleist group and the coast, Rommel enlarged his bridgehead to 115 kilometers deep early on the 17th of May, making it to the heights of Le Cateau. The Germans continued on, with Guderian making it to the English Channel on the 20th, which completed the encirclement of some 40 Allied divisions. Lord Gort was able to mount a small counterattack at the city of Arras on May 21st, which caught Rommel's 7th Panzer Division off guard, but without French help, it was pushed back. The British now believed that an evacuation of the BEF was the best option. With the gap tightening around Dunkirk, some 50,000 French soldiers stood their ground so that on May 26th through June 4th, Operation Dynamo could evacuate a total of some 350,000 British, French, and Belgian forces at Dunkirk. But now with the best of the French soldiers gone, France quickly sued for peace on June 25th, 1940. The Blitzkrieg of France had been an astonishing triumph for the Nazis. The world was left in shock how the Nazis have just triumphed over considerably the best army in Europe. This largely affected American opinion on joining World War II. Now they saw their ally, the British, all alone against a seemingly invincible force. However, this invincibility did not last the Nazis forever. Hitler went to his war with the Soviet Union, believing his unstoppable Blitzkrieg could triumph over the Soviets like it did in France. However, this overconfidence would eventually mean the fall of the Third Reich. Yet this still doesn't undermine the effectiveness of the Blitzkrieg tactic. It was because of this tactic that the Nazis were able to plow through a stronger French army. With the speed and boldness of the Blitzkrieg, the French High Command was dumbfounded and less powerless, while their soldiers were tragically massacred by joint Panzer and Luftwaffe assaults. Today, the once grand French army that was praised as the greatest army in Europe is now ridiculed as a tragic embarrassment to the French people, as a result of the triumphant German Blitzkrieg in France.